UFL Training Camp is about to kick off. We got UFL rule changes and championship location. All that and more on episode 95 of the UFL Podcast.
1, 2, 3.
Everybody to another amazing edition of the UFL Podcast. I'm the rep representing Pro Football Newsroom, the leaders in spring football news. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, do we got a big week for you. But before we get started, as always, I'm joined by my man, Zach Kyleman. How you doing today, my friend?
The big 9-5. I can feel that 3-digit mark itching ever so closer to this show, what the milestone will be soon enough. But I can also feel the season itching much closer now. Some film from the start of the year. It might be a reality very soon on social media, as we'll be talking today. Lots of stuff going on. The league's getting more active. When I'm at my job and I see that the UFL's on the FS1 ticker, I know the season's coming up in full swing. They're getting ready to go. Clearly, it's nearby. It's almost time, ladies and gentlemen. Just a little bit longer.
We're like a month away. It's like almost literally a month away from kickoff. And every year this happens, Zach. Every year we have this, we have the season. We get to the championship. Things slow down and it feels like time is just crawling. And then as you get closer to the end of the year, things pick up. As the new year comes, it picks up a little bit more. And slowly but surely, next thing you know, you're a month away from kickoff just like now. But before we get into the episode, a couple things that we need to iron out here. The easy ones, if you're over on YouTube, look right below the video, subscribe, click the bell. It builds morale. It also lets you know when we're live, just like Monday nights with Around the ATU. Just like Spring Stock 4, baby, which is coming up March 28th. Ooh, boy, it feels so good. It feels so close. It's in Houston. It's in the home of the Swangers. Zach, you're going to be there. I'm going to be there. The party's in the parking lot. They haven't really released details around the parking lots, but if things stand true over at TDECU, it should be in Lot C. That's where they had the tailgates the last couple times. Mm-hmm. I assume that's where it's going to be this time. Once we have confirmation, we'll let you know, but that's where you should plan on heading. Because before we kick off, Zachy boy, you, me, we're getting live. Ducky's going to be out there. And you know what? I'm thinking we do something similar to what we did with Summer Stock last year, except for this year, I think we have better equipment. And so any of the mic problems that we had, those shouldn't be an issue. But I'm hoping. Come out and tailgate. If you're in Houston, come out and tailgate. If you're coming from St. Louis, come out and tailgate.
Come on
down with us. Do what you need to do. Come and party. Because Zach, I'll tell you, last year at Summer Stock, I think it was actually so fun just circling the tailgate. We ran into so many people. We had XFL Jim there. We had Jason Spurgeon Dirty there. We had, Jake Henry. We had all sorts of members from the community like James Larson and Ducky. So tune in. If you can't make it, tune in. We'll have a link over here on the YouTube. Another reason to subscribe, click the bell, do all those things. But if you're in Houston, come out Friday, come out early. We have to figure out time. What the game starts, I think, at 7 Central. So I assume the tailgate, at least portion, I don't know about the live stream, but I assume tailgate wise, at minimum, we'll be out there at 3 is my guess.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe bet. And yeah, it's 7 Central out there, TDECU in Houston, Texas. So definitely be ready to go. I think 3 is a safe bet. We might adjust it late a little bit depending on timing or how we have to set up and get ready or move as we need, decide what we need to do with press credential stuff if we're going to do that. So, but for now, I think that's a safe bet. And then follow our socials at UFL Podcast for any updates or UFL Newsroom as well. We'll be getting that around on all those accounts too. ATU will share it on as well. So please do that. And I love that. By the way, I love that we're now around the UFL.
Wait, what happened? What did I do?
I was messing with you. You said around the ATU. I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, the acronym.
Yeah.
No. But
no, that's what happens. CJ Johnson is my coach, and so I just throw acronyms with the full words, mix it up a little bit. Anyway.
He has a game plan.
Yeah.
3 o'clock Central, to be determined or approximation. Stay tuned to our channels. More details coming very shortly for Spring
One thing
Stock 4.
I know what one thing we're going to have. We're going to have a cooler of RC Cola. We're going to have that ready.
Hell yeah.
Here's one thing we can do in Houston that I know, confirmed. We can drink alcohol. One thing we couldn't do in Canton. We learned that firsthand experience.
We did learn that very firsthand.
Get that out of here. Oh, geez. Okay, fine.
I have never felt more lucky in my life for the timing of getting a cooler of alcohol away from a security official that fast.
That guy didn't like us. But you know what? And you know, it's so far away from it that I could talk about it now. That guy was just mad because he called my bluff. He didn't think we were allowed to sit up there. And I said, you better get on the phone with this guy. Oh yeah. You think you're just going to name drop him? No, just get on the phone with him. And I could hear the guy on the other side of the phone. Yeah, no, they're supposed to set up there, that we need them there set up right now. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, what's he saying? Oh, is he saying you have no? Oh, okay. Well, we're going to be over here setting up. So yeah, he didn't like us. So he gave us a hard time about the booze. He gave us a hard time about the vaping.
Bless those Fox officials for having our back for those events. That was they'll never not get enough love for those for that season, for those 2 years, especially year one.
Yeah.
One we got started, year two when we got that section. So it was nice. It was.
I never felt so important in my life, Zach, of just telling that guy, be like, no, call him. Because he's like, I could call this guy. I was like, please do. Go ahead.
That has to be the greatest I'm important moment, or one of the greatest in your life you'll ever say. I'm an important guy. Here, call this up. Let's see if you have a job at the end of the day.
He was like, you can't set up because they're doing the bomb sweep. I'm like, this is like not even inside the building. Get out of here, guy.
No.
Anyway, he
proceeds to have Daryl Johnson a few hours later sitting in front of us in a corner of like packed crowd. Like, that dude, that summer stock was amazing. And I'm we'll get Spring Stock 4. I'm looking forward to it. It's in your fandom's crowd. You know, you're going to be as on top of your shtick as ever before. So
12-0, baby.
12-0.
Dude, just wait, Zach. Just wait to see how smug I am when it's finally happening. When that 0-0 turns to 1-0. Oh man. And then the Battlehawks fans, they're gonna be crying.
We're gonna organize something where I will put a bet down where I'll put St. Louis wins, and if Houston pulls it off, we're gonna have a good time.
If.
Yeah. Yes.
Hearty chuckle.
I'll be so generous to you that even if you lose the bet, I'll do nothing because I'm that confident. I will walk away out of there going, I told you so. And I'll get to go home and we'll just have a few laughs and a few brewskis back at the ref ranch.
Yeah.
later that night. So
man, I'm telling you, dude, Anthony Brown. See, we might get old CJ Johnson out on the field for that game. We might get him out there. What position? We don't care. He's put points on the board. Anyway,
let's get into some stuff, shall we? Actually, you know what CJ's also doing? He's getting ready for camp already.
He is. Yeah. We've already seen some of the coaches. They're arriving. We had Anthony Becht. He put out a post over on X. I think I saw Chris Woods put out a post. Some of these guys, everybody's kind of ramping up. Players, when I think they officially report, Friday is when they arrive?
It's coming up this coming Monday.
Monday. Yes. Yeah. So they're going to be heading off, and this is like kind of the final stretch before the season. You know, there's no official preseason in the UFL, but this is where they're having all of their reps. I assume they might even have some exhibition games out there, either with inter team, but I wouldn't even doubt if they have it between teams. We saw that with the USFL at least.
Well, yeah, we did actually see some clips and not reporting, but I guess talking of that, they did do inter-team scrimmages during the setup and training camp. So, we will get a few of these like preliminary kind of glances that might spill out. Hopefully, maybe some training camp updates, because I did see the UFL website's been a little more active at getting articles. So fingers crossed, because they're in Texas, they send like one or two people that they happen to have in the area to just kind of give us some camp synopses. If you don't, hey, UFL, if you're listening or watching, I think you should do that, because I think it'd be a great way of getting people interested in what's going on with these battles. Just being honest with you.
Well, even just getting some clips and putting them on social media, I would hope, and I'm not going to assume anything, Zach. I don't assume anything about anything anymore when it comes to spring football. But you got this new UFL headquarters that's going to be used for media and marketing and this and that and everything. And, that's in Arlington. And you know what else is in Arlington? That's the training camp. And I mean, if they don't have people out there getting photos and videos and talking to players, is just a missed opportunity. I think we'll see it. We've seen it with the past seasons. Granted, social teams are a little bit different this year. I'm not going to go into how I necessarily feel about that, but mainly before I say this, I always want to give people an opportunity. So people always have to start somewhere. So maybe some of the posts, like the best thing about spring football is that it's played in the spring. If you ever see something like that and it really upsets you and you're like, oh, geez, why would you post something about that? Give them maybe a little bit of a break.
Do I need to give you a breathing session? Breathe in, breathe out.
That post made me angry. It makes me angry. It makes me.
You clearly, and this is funny because this is the more resisted version of this take than what it is what we've been setting up today.
There's so many things about spring football that are great about spring football other than being played in the spring, that it does genuinely make me upset. And I know. There's probably some person, it's like they're new on the job and they're like, I don't know much about spring football. Why is it great? And they probably turn on a game and they're like, I don't know, it just looks like football to me. It's played in the spring though. Oh no, geez, God, no, because when I think of spring football, I'm fast paced, player safety, affordability, family friendly, fan interaction. Boom, there's like a whole list of things that are great about spring football that aren't being played in the spring. But again, since you're out there, not to deviate too far from the point, get some pictures, get some videos. And it doesn't just need to be a guy catching a ball. You know the drill. Hey, is a hot dog a sandwich? The old gags. You can do them. Just do, hey, draw the picture of the logo from memory. Just do things like that. Even, somebody did it a couple of years ago. Well, this player wasn't here before. Have like 10 players or like, I don't know. There's things you could be doing. So I expect and I hope to be seeing some of that. If anything, for my own selfish needs. I love spring football. I want more content. I want to ingest it as much as I can. But at the same time, which also seems to be the talk of the town on the ticket sales and this and that, I don't think being a doomer is good. But it does help. The more you post, the more content's out there, the more likely somebody's going to see it or say, oh, look, this is a thing, or, oh, hey, this thing is back, or, oh, what's this? They play on Fridays now? Because I don't know if many people even know that.
I think that's going to have to be increased pretty soon, because Saturday, Sunday, sure, but, there's been very little to push. And supposedly they're going to have a UFL Friday, like UFL Friday night is what I believe they're calling it. And it's going to get probably its own special logo and everything. Like Fox has been doing this where it's now Friday Showcase. So they have like Fox Friday Night Hoops or something like that right now. You might maybe be a good time to push it pretty soon. I almost would expect, because the season's coming up, you're going to start seeing promos on Fox stations. But like social media would be a great place to start doing it now. Maybe. I don't know. We'll have a little bit more of a talk about that, I think, soon. What I do want to circle back, because I find it funny with how you brought up the tweet. That tweet makes me think of is if you ever watch the old some of these old videos like on YouTube, like 2009's Nature Walk or whatever. Maybe this will ring the bell. This is an aspen tree. You can tell it's an aspen tree because of the way it is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's a classic. It's an old school one.
And maybe that's what they were going for. Maybe the joke, just like maybe I'm the dumb one.
I mean,
and maybe there's this social person on the other end of this being like, "Ref, you're so stupid."
I'll be frank with you. If that's the joke they went for, I mean, we're talking like 16-year-old humor at this point. It's been a minute since those videos have been out, but like it's kind of the vibe I got was like they're definitely trying to do that. Like, this is funny, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, no, you're right. That's all you need to know. Spring football is spring football because it's played in the spring.
Great. It made me so angry that it took me so far off a course that I almost forgot what we were actually talking about here. Training camp.
Let's talk training camp here. So I think a little bit more on this. What are you looking for? And it can be anything with training camp. What are you looking forward to with training camp? Maybe storyline, generic league storyline, a team specific one. You can talk Roughnecks. I mean, this is your time to shine here with that.
I think there's a couple things, right? You know, when you look at specifically the Roughnecks, I'm really just more curious to see how the team shakes out, who ends up making the cut, who doesn't end up making the cut, and even to a certain extent for the rest of the league, right? Because right now, these are the biggest that the teams will ever be. From here on out, they're going to get smaller until the season kicks off. And one of the things that we see every year is there's always a couple names that you look at and you're like, how the hell did they not make the cut? And then it opens up this new storyline of, are we going to see this guy now land on another one of these teams in the league? Now, I normally wouldn't say this because the Roughnecks are going 12-0, but there might be some opportunities in the Roughnecks to fill some gaps. So as cuts are being made around the league, even maybe while training camp's happening, do we see some of these guys start switching spots, like even as we go into that? And so I kind of have my eyes on it from that perspective. I'm, from the Roughnecks, I want to just know who are going to be the guys hoisting that trophy at the end of the year. Who are these guys that are going to go an unprecedented 12-0 winning streak? So that's a big thing out of it. Now, there's also, as you know, Zach, with any sport, not just spring football, there's always a good jumbled up story or two that comes out of these things. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's either a positive or a negative story to come out of it. I've heard some things, not that they're worth talking about now because there's, you know how it goes, Zach. They got to go through the motion. 7 years, Zach, 7 years. You do something for 7 years, you learn some things you hear and you're like, okay, I'm going to let that one play out. We'll see how it goes. Right. But so there's all sorts of things that could come out of this training camp. Me personally, I'm just looking forward to the rosters. I'm looking forward to maybe a little bit of banter. I can't remember this scenario, but I want to say, I think Jace was talking about it during the other day during training camp. There was a scrimmage where one of the players was being extra tough. Was it somebody on the Panthers? It was the guy from the CFL who I'm talking about.
Garrett Marino, you're talking about.
Yeah. So like those kind of stories are always interesting to surface out of these things too, good or bad, right? Because sometimes you see guys that like, okay, a player might go out of their way to help somebody and maybe not just hurt them. Or, some of these guys are going to come in and you know how it is with coaches. Sometimes they have a good idea who's going to make the team or not. Right. Oh yeah. So I'm even more looking forward to seeing who are those surprises, of like, there's the surprise cuts, but who are the guys that we're going to look back and say, really, that's who got it? And then 3 weeks from now, we're going to say, I see why they got him on the field because he just returned it 98 yards or did this or who knows what, you know what I mean? So that's it, mainly roster stuff and gossipy background noise. Those are my two favorite things.
Yeah, I think, quite frankly, I always, anything with training camp, I love camp battles. And I think with spring, it's a little different now where I think we're almost get tied up in ways. And talking with when we talked with like Nick Thorne or like James about this on ATU, we almost get tied up with names sometimes. And now with as the years go by, you're going to see newer talents come in from like the draft pool or just from schools that are smaller, and UDFA guys that are going to come in. And I almost wonder, that's my most fascinating part is who's going to get bumped that was like a recognizable guy that you felt like his name was going to get locked in and he would have a spot on a roster. So, quite frankly, like, yeah, I can look at these rosters and, say like, if I'm off the top of my head here, like say I'm looking at like a St. Louis and not, looking at like we talked with Travis Feeney last week. I think, for example, I think his spot's locked, but like there's been guys like his name that, in the last few years, he'll get just like, they'll just evaluate and unfortunately they get booted. Now, do I think he gets booted? No, I'm just specifying as an example. Like we've seen this where like some big names will get removed and then they'll go and find a new place or go and try and find a new roster. And I think that's the thing is I like that like first and second round of cuts, always waiting for that anticipatory thing and watching how the waiver wire plays out. Maybe some teams that did get signings or were like, man, this team really needs like some sort of boost in any position. They just get lucky that someone has an overload in a spot and then you can kind of slide them in somewhere else for help. I know on our last around the UFL, people were saying, I actually had some comments that said St. Louis needs corner help. I'm like, oh, interesting. Well, I guess I would be curious to watch and see if maybe that's a waiver wire thing that, Anthony Becht and company might take advantage of if they feel like they're weak at that spot. I don't know if that's what they believe, but like, that's kind of what fans can think is like, hey, I like the rest of this roster. Maybe this could be filled by someone who has a little too many pieces in one position, and has a little too much competition, but they're good elsewhere and they can fill in a need really easily and still start somewhere else in the league. So that's what I'm waiting on. I like those I like those waiver wires and I like those cut rounds. Not for the fact that some of these guys may not get a spot, but for the fact that some of the waiver wire rounds allow these players to go elsewhere and maybe more balance out some of these teams better, because I think a lot of people don't want to see, for example, like the USFL conference last year. I don't think people want to see the conference get locked up by like week 7 again. I think they want to see it like till down the wire, that second position for the championship game kind of being close, and stuff like that does help, in theory. So it's not bad, but this is of course football. We are competing for winning first and foremost. It's anything goes, and trades in this league are not really a thing right now just because, it's too many 1-year deals. Like that's the thing. We always hope there's trades. Or like things like that, but usually they're just for the benefit of a player. It seems there's not really much you get in return right now because, again, we haven't solidified multi-year deals as a concept because this league's still in its youthful stage for the most part.
Now, I'm curious when we do look at the Roughnecks, because I'm actually surprised. There's conflicting ideas about this on the internet on who's going to win that QB battle. To me, it seems a lock. Anthony Brown's going to win that. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm living in the past because this happens. I also said the same thing about Clayton Thorson. I thought he was going to be our guy.
Right.
Maybe not. Nolan Henderson, solid. McClendon, solid. I don't know, man. It just feels like Anthony Brown is that's the pick. That's the signing that this team has been waiting for to hopefully put us to the next level. Now, granted, he's going to need a little bit of help from people being able to catch his balls and things like that. But I don't know. It just feels like to me that's the guy that's going to get it. But I'm curious. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I if I'm going like Houston real quick, I think Anthony Brown makes the most sense as the starter off the gate. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if it's just me, but I mean, I've liked Jalen McClendon. I don't know. I still see the Vegas Vipers guy that came in and kind of stepped into a role and really kind of solidified what was Hines Ward's team for that one XFL season. Maybe I'm wrong. I know that he keeps kind of getting buried in rosters wherever he's been going, but I still got faith in the guy. I still think he can make an impact somewhere, and I think he's going to give good competition in camp. But if I'm being honest with you, I think most people think Brown or Henderson's more of the dynamic play caller. And I think that's what most of these teams want is someone that, yeah, sure, the arm's great, but, when you have a league built on, O-lineman talent that is very premium to come by, you do need somebody that needs to be able to kind of buy some more time. And, I think McClendon isn't as much as that as the other two. I think Brown also has a little bit more upside just because, he's fresh out of the NFL scene a little bit. And I think that he's ready to finally show off his talents that he had and clearly was displaying at Oregon. So I think it'll be Brown, but that one to me, I think I'm watching for as curious who gets the number 2. They're not overloaded on QB. So like no matter what, the third one's going to be an emergency. It's just who's going to be the emergency and stepping aside. I think also if I'm looking at like other camp battles, quite frankly, I think a lot of people are debate, if we're talking QB debate, Birmingham comes to mind. It's not really, to me, there's other spots you can probably argue that they have other battles going on with. Like, I'll be honest with you, Birmingham's tight end group, holy crap. Like, have you seen who is all in this? Like, just pulling up and looking at the Nick Thorne's roster doc, by the way, check that out. Free download in PFN Discord. Like Jay Sternberger is the immediate lock, but then you look like Michael Petway, Marcus Baugh, and Jordan Thomas. Excuse me, all four of these people could be starting somewhere immediately or being number 2 tight ends. How do you sift through that? Like that,
it's going to be crazy.
That's such a packed. Like I'm just picking a group out of all these rosters. That position group is insanely packed for a team. Like that's a camp battle I'd watch if I'm a Stallions fan. Who comes out as those like number 1 and 2 tight ends at the end of the day? Because I don't think you keep all of them. You're going to have to cut that spot down personally. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued about their receiver battle too, with Alex Magoo now in the mix. I mean, that's gonna be a close one when it comes to game day. I mean, I don't know if anyone's gonna stop them out there. But I will say this: it is to the Stallions, man. They're just good. They're just good. They're just good. And what the craziest thing's going to be at the end of the season is people are going to look back and be like, how the hell did the Roughnecks beat them? And I don't know either, but we're going 12-0, so get over it. But dude, the Stallions, if anyone's going to beat the Roughnecks, it's going to be the Stallions because they're good.
Yeah,
they're good. If you were like an XFL fan or even a USFL fan and you're like, come on, the Stallions got to suck one of these years and you were hoping this might be it. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think that they might continue to be good. I just call it a hunch.
You may be onto something. You just might. Yeah. Well, but I mean, I love the competition aspect, training camp, just general football thing. And I'm kind of, for the sake of like competition, I'm fascinated to see how the waiver wire plays out. It's gonna be good. Every year, every league we've seen this, and even last year you had a few here or there, just kind of go places and whatnot. Be fascinating. I'm looking forward to it a lot. It's gonna be good. I don't know. Otherwise, just camp footage. I mean, just seeing these guys on the field again. It's fun watching the highlights from last year, but now I'm at the point now. I think everyone is where it's like, all right, let's see some new in new uniforms, like EJ Perry in a Memphis Showboats uniform, for God's sake, or seeing Magoo and Matt Corral, out there being on camp and having to, be arguably the, I think it's going to be arguably the most talked about quarterback decision of the offseason is who gets that starting role out there or how they split time. So, that's the stuff I think a lot of people also are waiting for is this new camp footage we're going to get and just helping to now reinvigorate that the season is now here. And we can start talking like even more seriously about, oh my God, we can get back to watching football again here.
And it's coming. Like I said, a month away. And, as such, we have training camp coming up. So that, what that generally means. The league is going to release the rule book completely free of charge, by the way.
Absolutely free of charge. I love how free is me and you and basically the entire spring football audience that is that wants to save $5 in their pocket.
Yep. Unfortunately, the league's not providing premium content, but they are providing content nonetheless. And so we have a list of rule changes to talk about. Now, this one, the first one, Zach, I don't know. It's an interesting one because this one, we're changing the kickoff rules back. Now granted, if you're an XFL fan, depends on which fan you were, if you're one fan or another. But we were going from, we're keeping the USFL kickoff. But then the NFL kind of adopted the XFL kickoff, which kind of made the UFL lean towards changing their kickoff. And now the NFL's changing their kickoff. And it's just all kickoff changes left and right.
Oh, yeah.
And it just leaves you confused. What does this kickoff look like? So essentially, the UFL's kickoff rules this season will be based on a combination of the kickoff used by the XFL during its 2023 season and the NFL dynamic kickoff used by the NFL during this past 2024 season. So the kickoff, let's get into the specifics. It's now going to start from the 30-yard line after being at the 20-yard line last season. 10 remaining players on the kickoff team will line up at the receiving team's 40-yard line. All kicking team players will be at the 20-yard line, including the kicker. Mm-hmm. Let's see, what do we got here? Receiving team setup zone will stretch from 35 to the 30-yard line. Must have at least 9 players in that zone. Mm-hmm. Last season, receiving team had to have a minimum of 8 players, but no more than 9 in their setup zone, which was kicking the team's 30 to 40. We're just throwing out numbers, Zach. I don't know if anybody's even following what I'm saying. I'm just saying numbers and nonsense.
I mean, look, it is available on the UFL's website as well. But the best thing you need to know, or to more simplify this, is when you see the kickoff this year, if you've watched the XFL in any capacity, it's going to look very familiar. Or if you've watched the European League of Football, because we have a lot of people that also watch the ELF, and that's a growing audience over here in North America as well. If you've watched either one of those leagues, all you need to know is that between the 30 and 35-yard line, when you kick off, there are 2 lines of men lined up, 9 players apiece that are going to be kind of setting up there. You then have, you're going to then set up and you're going to have at least minimum 9 players. You then have a kicker who's way far back, kicking it off. He has to pass both those lines of the ball. Otherwise, there's a massive yardage penalty that sets the ball in a very advantageous space up on the field. So, quite frankly, you don't want to kick it short. Otherwise, you're going to get that thing spotted upwards to the 40-yard line. So keep that in mind. If you get it past, you can still touch back, but the idea is that you've set the ball up to where you should see minimal touchbacks, which in the NFL, they did increase the returns this year by the NFL standards quite a lot. It was a little north of 50% returns this year, which if you've watched any NFL in recent years, you know that number has been very minuscule, like up around I think at best between 20 and 30. 30's even being generous for me. So the NFL liked it. And the UFL, as we talked about, they merged, they consolidated rules, they tried to play a 50-50 split, and quite frankly, the NFL saw the rule changes and they wanted to change something, and bad timing. I'll give you my thoughts. Personally, after watching both rule sets, I slightly preferred the USFL style only because it was more traditional setup with a bit more of the spacing and chaotic nature of how the traditional return plays go. However, I'm not going to be too homerish on this because I also like to play the realist side of things. The writing was on the wall last year. If the kickoff in the NFL was going to blow up and people liked it and the NFL teams liked it and you saw returns that were cool and were dynamic and got return touchdowns again, they weren't going to go away from it, and the UFL wasn't going to shy away from kind of matching up in that area of something that, their origins kind of created. So
it makes sense. They can claim the thing. Yeah.
As long as the NFL didn't royally screw it up, it was coming. And so, it was nice to see one more year the USFL kickoff, because I still think that rule set from Mike Pereira was pretty nice. It did encourage, better returns, almost always a return, by the way. And you also had yardage start much higher up on the field, so you could help with the scoring issues and earlier weak offensive, I think, issues of synergy that come with spring football and short training camps. But it's a different era. Safety's part of this league, as they've stressed. And, the XFL kickoff, at least by appearance, although data still has not fully been out there, but, it did help, I would say, if I had to guess, with concussion numbers going down the NFL again this year. So,
can't
be
mad at that.
They were going to go that way. It was inevitable once the return numbers came out. Once that percentage came out, that was over 50% of returns were coming back with that setup. It was over. That was it. It was going to be over. It was a matter of time. They finally announced it very recently as one of the main changes. It's the highlight change. There's a few other noteworthy ones, but it's the one that most people are discussing right now. Is they were waiting for that shoe to drop.
Mm-hmm. Now, I will say, in regards to the coaches challenge, we have a little bit of an update here. So now they get a second challenge as long as the first challenge is successful.
Right.
Which is nice. Same kind of rule apply if they don't have any timeouts. They got no challenges. So not a huge update there. But, the same, it's kind of other same rules apply. They can challenge everything. Even when it makes no sense to challenge it, Zach, which we've seen. There's been a couple times where I don't think CJ Johnson would have ever done anything like that. But I know other coaches have done things where I'm like, really, guy, you already know Mike Pereira looked at this call, right? Like in those instances where it's a call that they had to review, and then you challenge them, like, there may have been one instance where that worked.
There have, and actually San Antonio did execute at getting some overturns last year. So it's not too crazy of a change. Quite frankly, it can happen, but here's the difference is that it doesn't happen enough, I guess. I think some coaches though would appreciate having that second one just in case. And I think that's why they're putting it in is, hey, I still maybe feel like I got burned here. And we saw last year, again, the Brahmas executed where they did show that, yes, super challenges still do matter. I know that they're not common. I know that there's a low percentage that you get an overturn because of the fact that you have so much oversight video-wise on the fields with the command center in place. But it does happen sometimes. There are a few times where in the action, things kind of slip. I don't disagree, but like on face value, it's funny because like anyone who's watched any spring football with the command center or sky judge, or whatever you call it, it's almost near perfect at its job of what it does. So like challenging almost feels like you're throwing something away. But we saw last year, there are times there are misses. Like there is still human error in the system. It's very minuscule. It's still the best version, as the NFL is showing that they're trying to lean more into replay assist as well. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You know
what that makes me think of, Zach? I don't know if you remember this. I think this was year one in the USFL. Mm-hmm. And, Mike Pereira, God bless his soul. He was such a flippin' trooper that year because he was the only guy. Remember, it was like him and maybe one other guy in that command center.
Yep.
And there was one weekend where he was at like his daughter's wedding, but he was still doing the command center thing. Mm-hmm. And I'll have to find out what game this is now and find the clip. But there's one time where they go to Mike Pereira and you could just hear him talking in the background, like having a drink or something. Like he was not at the command center. That's all I know. He was not there. Virtual. And you could hear him like off in and he came back around like, oh, hey, sorry about that.
Virtual means you can kind of be where you need to be. It's amazing what you can do now with some of the tech, with some of the broadcast subs people have anymore. I got stories. I just don't want to share them out of safety. But I was thinking a little bit more about that Brahmas one. The one that I remember most is that was successful was week 1 against DC. Mm. Remember Jordan Tomlin throws a touchdown. Wade Phillips says there's a hold on the play. There is a hold on the play. Same player eventually gets a personal foul penalty for supposedly spitting on a player.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. That game changed on a dime because of the super challenge. Yep. Otherwise, DC was back into it if they score. Instead, no conversion. They didn't get any points on that drive. So, just kind of shows you there is enough if you look. I think it comes down to not only like finding the few times there's error, but like in that instance, there's creativity in what you see as a coach.
You bring it up because where the magic in the Brahmas usually is those coaches up in the booth.
They got a good coaching staff. That's one thing.
You got AJ Smith who's looking at it like Madden, and he can spot those things from like a mile away. So yeah, it does come down to the coaches being like on it to know like where it's going to work. Unfortunately, again, I don't think this would ever happen in Houston, but if it did, it wouldn't surprise me. This one, I don't know how to feel about this one, Zach. No more onside kicks.
In terms of the traditional onside kick.
Well, you can get it from the 4th and 12, right? Yeah.
So basically, and I kind of think they're trying to lean into the excitement factor here because I think a lot of teams, well, and a lot of these coaches, what will happen is they fall into a lot of more traditional football setups where it's like, well, yeah, I mean, we can do this, but like, why don't we just go for the onside kick? And, I know we do have a set of fans that they lean into the don't take away specialist stuff for the sake of this, because the league has a lot of good specialist players as kind of they're touting it. But this rule, I feel like kind of does play into what spring football, like what makes it different and kooky, and like why people tune in is like for some unique stuff like this, is them basically saying, look, your only option, go for on 4th and 12. I don't mind it. I think that, quite frankly, I know some people, the other side of this has been maybe 4th and 15, because they felt like the XFL one, because this was the XFL adjustment, was a 4th and 12 in the 2023 season. And a lot of people felt that was almost a little too easy. But I don't know, man. I mean, good defense, and they always want the comeback, keep these games close and make them energetic till the end. So it's good broadcasting stuff here that you get. This is kind of a rule of cool choice, which I'm not opposed to. I think, quite frankly, with some of the rules the NFL's taking and borrowing now from the UFL's innovations that from both leagues, you kind of got to get in where you fit in and choose what makes you a little bit different. And this isn't one I complain with. And this is one of those rules that I think we're going to see come up, and it'll be one of those things that blows up for like casual sports Twitter, or casual social media beyond our circles, which is what I think they're looking for.
Right. Yeah, I guess I agree. It's not like the end of the world. I'm not going to be so upset about it. I would, kind of going to the rules that are still coming around. We still have the 3 extra point options. So 1 point from the 2 points from the 5, 3 points from the 10. I would like the extra point kick rather than the 2 yard line. Surprisingly though, Zach, people don't get that extra point every time. No, it feels like that from that you should be getting that point every time. It just feels like you should. I like the kick better, if anything, because it gives, we're seeing it every year. The kickers are becoming less and less important in the spring football league. But at the same time, those are the guys that are getting signed by the NFL and showing out. We had Brandon Aubrey, and then we had Jake Bates last year. And then it's like another year where it's like, okay, yeah, we don't have the extra point. We don't have an onside kick. We don't really have, the kickoff, so there's, I don't know. Again, I do like the idea of having the 3 extra points. My gripe would be especially if you're going to change the kickoff, at least bring the UFL one back where it's like, okay, the kick and then the 2 and the 3 point,
Well, sure. And I think you could, I think the league's just looking at it as they're trying to find something that makes exciting marketing stuff, which, yes, going for it and having to play an offensive play and force it, that's what gets it there when you're at the 2 yard line. So, I see the other side of the coin. But what I also argue, and I think I'll play to this, is with the NFL's adjustment to the new kickoff rules, which the XFL rules, aka whatever you want to call it, coming in, you're going to see emphasis not only on kickers that are, of course, hitting these 60-yarders like a Jake Bates. How consistently can you get touchbacks? And I'm not going to lie, like, touchbacks still are part of the game, but special teams coordinators that are playing on the side of kicking the ball away, they love if you can get back to the end zone, even with this new format, and take away any chance of a return. So, like, that is marketable for a kicker, is saying, oh, wow, you had this high of a rate of touchback with this setup? Oh, yeah, that's nice. And you were pretty damn good from getting kicks, and you were hitting easily 50s or even a 60 here or so, which is amazing how 60-yard kicks are like becoming a norm.
It's crazy, yeah.
But like this is the modern NFL, modern football we live in, is like that's still valuable. Like, yes, you do lose the onside here, and you do lose that extra point, but like you do get that eval, and I think kickoffs are going to be a bigger stat that like I think even statisticians will be looking at the more we get into this with the new kickoff rule set, because no one wants to give up a 40-yarder because you freaking chucked it and couldn't get to the launch point. Like, sorry, that's going to look bad. Like, if you have a whole season, like say you go through a 10-game season, you were maybe 85, 86% on field goals, and you had 0 launch errors. Like, you had 0 launch point errors where you're getting to the 40. That's a pretty damn good, like, prospect if you're a team in the market for a free agent kicker, maybe looking to compete. and then they get that shot in camp. So like, that's where I like argue. Plus, say you aren't going to get to that touchback. Well, now we can have returners that maybe have a little more specialty, even though I know that was the case with the USFL kickoff. That still is a viable thing with this one. So there is give or take. I think kickers still have a good avenue, though, to get themselves out there and looked at as one of the top positions that I think the UFL's used to help get guys to the NFL and also make an impact in the NFL.
Yep. So anyway, we got rules. We got training camp. The season is still a month away, but
yes,
we're already talking about the championship, Zach. Man, we potentially have a location, which if you're not checking out profootballnewsroom.com daily, I really don't know what you're doing, because hats off to James Larson. We'll just take a moment. We're gonna praise everything there is about James Larson, because I mean, that dude every day is knocking out articles. And I mean, if you want to know the ins and outs of the league, good and bad, he's throwing them out there. And one of those articles last week he put out was, it looks like potentially the UFL championship is heading back to St. Louis. Now, I don't know. Let me just pull up his article. I don't know what I can and can't say. Well, I can say whatever I want, Zach. You know what? I'll say whatever I want. Okay, he doesn't mention it in the article, but I'll mention it here. I don't care.
Okay.
So I know they were initially looking at going to DC, which I feel like that was out there. So I feel like I'm not saying something.
No. That was out there a few places.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure. Okay, never mind. So they were initially looking at DC scheduling. So it wasn't like a money thing. It wasn't like anything like that. It was just scheduling, which is unfortunate, Zach, because I'll tell you, I would love to go see a game in DC. I think DC would be perfect for the championship. I've always thought Audi Field was like the perfect size for a spring football league. It sits right around that 20,000 mark, which, if you'll remember, was one of the beautiful, perfect things about Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium over there in Canton, Ohio, is that 20,000, it's because 10,000 is not hard to get to a game. We saw that last year with the UFL championship in St. Louis. But if you have that in a 20,000 seat arena versus like a 50, 60, it looks a lot different, right?
Yeah.
But I understand why they would want to go to St. Louis for a couple of reasons. The easy one, it's their biggest market, right? Yes. And so their hope is, well, one, if St. Louis is in the game, hey, this should be an easy one to knock out of the park.
Right.
It should be pretty full. Boom. If they're not in the championship, well, we saw last year, it's kind of a mixed bag. The other one I think is equally important, if not more important, and having it under a dome, right? We saw the XFL do that with San Antonio. Then we saw it with St. Louis last year, and probably St. Louis this year, but it saves you from weather, right? And with spring football, you really don't want to delay your game. Like that creates problems, right? Especially because the game's on ABC this year. What's ABC got on Monday night? Probably not the UFL championship if the game gets rain delayed, So it is what it is. But at least we know where summer stock's probably going to be.
Fairly certain summer stock is out Missouri way off of the Mississippi River, but to be determined. I think here, again, we're waiting on all of it's pointing that way right now, but it is still got to hold out just a little bit longer on them saying it themselves that it's happening. The DC one would have been awesome, I think, just because it's another high energy fan base. I think you would have seen people go out for that. It's a more confined venue, a fun soccer venue that, I think does, it's got a more intimate crowd that way. But the St. Louis one makes sense. Like, you're absolutely right on the indoors. I mean, we've seen this too much already between both leagues. And I'll even go with it with Birmingham. I mean, how many times have we had a lightning strike delay in the last several years where you'll start a game, a storm comes in, lightning strike happens, you have to wait then, 30 minutes minimum and then extend it depending on how many more lightning strikes you see. And I'll be honest with you, unlike the NFL, the UFL is not in that same position where broadcasters are going to give it leeway to just keep on going. And that's from experience watching these leagues, but also from experience, again, just how you view and how the property's viewed in the television landscape. It's still not there. You know, there's a reason you still see that the league wants to get these 3 hour windows in and whatnot, because they're not, these networks, as much as Fox owns the UFL and as much as ABC through Disney has invested interest in the UFL, they know that these are still not the top dog programs for them and that they can default them to other smaller channels. They won't wait for them. So, you know, there are other things at play. So imagine if that happens during a championship game, which, keep in mind, you know, for both of these leagues, you know, and just looking back at Fox with USFL, for example, for their two, you know, they incentivized on trying to get a lot of good spots for those championship games. You know, even the XFL trying to sell inventory. You really don't want to burn that inventory or that viewership, especially when this is your marquee event that you're trying to show increase year over year. Is like, hey, we're getting 1.5 million to 2 million people for a championship game, and then we're trying to maintain that 1 million plus growth every year. That's not a good look, you know. And I think that what would happen is if you had that delayed, that just hurts your numbers overall. And they're not in a position really to be talking about these numbers online in a bad light. So, you know, I think you get a safer spot. And then, you know, the argument beyond that is, okay, well, we can't go to a Southern stadium or something outside because we're worried about weather. Well, what about Ford Field? And I've seen that too. What about Ford Field? Well, two things. A, Ford Field is very busy. It's much busier than the Dome. It's a much bigger metro than where the Dome's at too. And exactly, number two, it's been talked all about, people, that it is an expensive venue to rent. And, you know, the fact we were having conversations online about, like, we're still talking about people that think they should go to Reinerson in Eastern Michigan, which I don't agree with personally, but, you know, Ford Field's expensive. It's an NFL venue. It has its own restrictions and things, and you got to play by their rules. And I don't think they would have, unless the availability came up all of a sudden, I don't think they'd have it. And I think so you just put all that together, St. Louis works. And I'm going to save my point for after this, but what I found fascinating about this discussion, Stefan, everyone had their take on it, and everyone either was upset or defending the choice, if that is the choice. And I said it this way. I said, look, I find this entertaining how this debate's going. Neither side's wrong, though. Like, I think that's what's, to me, like, if I'm looking at this from both angles, I don't think there's any wrong take on this, because, like, if I'm a Birmingham fan, like, hey man, I've had like 3 championships. Like, yeah, there's a weather risk, but, like, you know, why not come to us? Like, we've had a lot of, we put our keep in, or, like, you know, if I'm looking at like Ford Field, like, yeah, sure, it's expensive, but it's like, we're a dome stadium. Why not check out and get the Michigan market engaged? But that's the thing, you know, are we in the position to do that where and this is what the league's also gambling on, is, as we saw last year, to gamble on attendance or gamble on that look for a championship game, you know, because yes, they won't admit it publicly, but a Battlehawks championship game would do wonders for optics for spring football. You would
100%.
easily, and people project this, but you would easily get 40K without a doubt going into the
absolutely.
dome. Some people think 50. Like, and that's the thing. That's what they'll never tell you out loud, but that's exactly what they want to happen if it happens. That.
Yeah. Now, I will say this, you know, for the people giving it gruff about heading back to St. Louis. Now, granted, I would, my personal take, I would like to see it somewhere else, just if anything, to keep it moving.
At some point
in opportunity.
Even San Antonio, and I hate that we didn't bring that up. That's another market dome stadium too, you know, but
Shakira screwed that one up.
Well, yeah, you know, there's other things with that. They have to fix next year a full slate of home games. Let's see, not even fully stick that in, but like, I think we talk about this audience engagement, and I feel like that's where I'm like, I don't disagree with the other side of the coin that's that's upset about this, because they want to be feeling like they're part of this too. You know,
yeah.
Like, keep that in mind. Like, yes, St. Louis draws the numbers, but like, isn't the mission to grow all the markets?
Right.
But I understand the point that the financials say go to St. Louis, though.
The other thing I'll give them, though, is it's also a partially renovated dome. New field, some new lighting. I think that the field, especially, Zach, that was always, even back in XFL 2020, I'm like, that field doesn't look so hot, guys. That one needs maybe a little. We saw him painting the field in Las Vegas. They should have had that guy out in St. Louis. That's all I'm saying.
It's a lovely new turf. And I think that's a testament to the Battlehawks' power that they were able to even kind of convince in a way, and there's other stuff they do there football wise, but the fact that the Battlehawks have a presence there too, where they're like, yeah, we can invest in this turf and get a new set of turf and not feel like we didn't use that money, right? Like, that's pretty big. And so, I don't disagree, but I also get it. It's like, at some point, if we talk futurist or future moves, like, you do got other venues, and, I think that's what we're going to have to balance. Cause I think if you, for example, keep doing St. Louis every year, I'm not saying that will happen, but I feel like that animosity grows a little bit more the more you lean on the same place. Or something like that.
And even to that point, there is such a thing as too much football. And we saw that with season 1 of the USFL, right? And I think that might even be part of the reason that Birmingham has a somewhat of I won't say attendance problem, but it's hard kind of getting it back out in the market. Is that first season, you had every game. Not only was every Birmingham game a home game, but you had every team playing there. To where now it's like season 2, season 3. I mean, you had so much of it to where it's kind of easy to just like pass up a little bit now. Or same thing with St. Louis. You put that championship there every year. Second year you can probably get away with, but every year, I don't know, the allure might go away for somebody that was like, oh, I really need to go see a game in the Dome. Well, if they did it the last 2 years, they might not be incentivized to go a third year. Right. So, you might get the local market. And again, if St. Louis is in there, you're right, Zach. I don't know if there's any other market in the league to where if their team was in the championship and their game was at home, Birmingham might show up. But we'll see. St. Louis is probably going to win that battle anytime. Right. So I get it from that perspective.
Well, I think as well, if we're talking other venues, like let's be honest here, like if they can find a way to get San Antonio where it's not a scheduling conflict. I mean, if we're talking getting other activations of nearby teams.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's the other one where I'm looking at. It's like at some point you got to look at that as like the Alamo Dome to me is like to me an easy number 2 option that you got to look into at some point as another venue.
You're almost guaranteed to have a team from Texas in the championship with like almost half of your league in there. Not guaranteed, but almost
3/8. But like, that's my point is like even that, but even without that, you have 3 fan bases in a very reasonable triangular distance for each other. That you would have enough fan base of diehards that would come out to celebrate a championship game, and then whoever else is in there that would come there. So that's my take, and I think that was also apparent when they did the XFL championship in San Antonio as well. It wasn't a bad turnout. So I think
because you had Arlington in the game and people could come.
And again, I think that's a good argument to say, hey, if you need another place to go to try and avoid some of the animosity of trying to say we favorite one base over the other, that's your other option. You know, I think that's a solution that's available. They got to get the venue availability fixed though, without a doubt.
One thing at a time, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I think that brings us to all of our topics. I feel like maybe there was one other one in there. Did you have a gripe about something, Zach?
Well, I don't know if it's a gripe. I expressed on around the UFL that I was going to kind of go a little more in depth on the ticket marketing discussion. For those that have been following that, our great insider James Larson put and painted a picture of what is definitely some concerning trends with ticketing and the marketing side. We've seen recent firings of head ticketing and marketing officials in the UFL, dismissals. I want to be more official, not saying fired, but they parted ways. And so they've been trying to rebuild these spots. And I think we've had a lot to talk about online about what they need to address or who's to blame for these situations. And I more want to address the blame part of this discussion because to me, I've seen several folks in various fan bases doesn't, I not just one specific one or whatever. There are a few from other places. I've seen DC, San Antonio, St. Louis, you name it, because the conversation is revolved around like a Birmingham mostly, where it's like, man, this market has 3 championships and they can't get 10,000, they can't get 11 or 12,000 people out to a market. Or someone goes, man, if they can't average 12,000 people, should we just move this team? It's ridiculous that these fans don't show up and they don't show out for a championship team. And I pause and I say, is it their fault? Is this the fault of the consumer for choosing to not come to a game because the business does not appeal or does not target or does not get to them the message of the value that they want from their ticket? Is it their fault if the business is not doing its job correctly to sell you on the product that they want you to see? Is it their fault for having a price rise year over year over year and not adding on things to help justify a price change? I really want people to sit down and kind of think about this for a second and really understand that if you're a person you're on the fence on this, or you are, you just came out of a season and you were not satisfied with something with your ticket package, or as I've heard, you saw that a season ticket holder or single game ticket holder got a better deal by waiting for coupon codes that the league drops on random.
I talk about that
stuff
all the time. And I'm
speaking to you as a season ticket holder for Houston, by the way. So you probably feel this, and others that you talk to in your season base, the exact same. Is it the consumer's fault for not feeling like they're rewarded for being a fan or being a ticket holder in this place? I really want to ask people, because it feels like we're trying to get at certain areas that are not to blame. I really feel like we are trying to blame something that is not the actual problem. It's the business's problem to attract your dollar to sit in a stand and to buy a season package. It's not the fans. This isn't something that we should expect fans to instantly just bow down and throw cash at the problem. It's the business's problem. It is the business finding and reaching the fandom, or reaching the person that maybe doesn't know, or maybe feels like they are not going to get what they want, and showing them that they will get what they want out of this if they buy tickets. And I think that message gets lost from some fan bases that either they are the fortunate ones that have had a jump out of the gate because of certain situations. For example, St. Louis, a team was left. For example, DC, for years during the DC Defenders run, had a pretty horribly run NFL team in the same market. And I feel like it was kind of easy to just justify not watching your other option. For Birmingham's, for the Memphises, for the Michigans of the world, do you blame them for having tickets rise while also not having your appealing in market and in your area vibe come your way? Like, is it the fans' fault for not getting reached out well enough? That's my message. I really think a lot of people need to realize, like, and I'm not saying, just be angry at the UFL. No, I'm saying focus more your energy on what the real problem is. The real problem is the league dropped the ball on ticketing and marketing correctly to people when the merger happened. And clearly you can see they are course correcting it this year very hard, because they realized too, they messed up. It's the business's problem to solve, not the fans' problem. And I really can't say that enough, because the fans should not be the ones that are trying to save your business in terms of like, it's their responsibility. No, it's not. It is the responsibility of the owners of this business that is the United Football League to solve that problem, not the person sitting at home watching the game that felt like they were going to spend way too much for a football game. That's on them. That is on the league, not them. Do not blame fans. Blame the business owners. Expect better from those people, not the person at home.
Yeah. Well, and you can see it. It's not even just what people are saying online. I see it firsthand. I live here in Houston. I've been covering spring football for over 7 years at this point, right? And so I was talking to you. I watched Charlie Ebersol announce the AF. I watched Vince McMahon announce the XFL. Like just over the weekend, I was just kind of like looking back on things, and I don't know, man. It feels like the people, not maybe the people in charge, because I don't know if necessarily the people in charge know everything that's even kind of happening behind the scenes.
I mean, there's a good chance they may not
separate it out, right? But I don't know. It feels like some of the people that are doing some of the work now have kind of lost the mission. And I already complained about it earlier, but that fucking, I'll say it, that stupid social post about the best thing about spring football is it's played in the spring it's everything we're talking about right now. They don't even know one thing that's good about spring football other than it's played in the spring. And it's the same thing. You don't know, like, okay, when you look at the ticket guys, right? They were already on shoestring budgets. Small staffs. Like, even in the instance of the USFL, there's like one guy kind of manning the whole league, right? And then they come into the UFL and everything got screwed up. Everything got screwed up. And I don't know what the change was per se. I mean, people can speculate, but no, I think you're exactly right, Zach. This isn't on the fans. You can't be mad. I mean, we were talking about this earlier. How many people are not going to be at a game on a Friday night because they don't even know the league's on a Friday night until maybe 3-4 weeks into the season? You bet it, Zach. You know we're going to see that reply under our tweet, maybe week 2 of, wait, they play on Friday nights now? We might even see it Saturday, the day after that Friday night game of, wait, what the hell?
Yep.
Friday? You know it just as I know it, just because even the years prior, people would say, oh my God, I can't believe they're back. And there's those people this time, plus changes. And I mean, as we look into like this year and going forward, there's more competition now. No longer is this the days of the illness that shall not be named. Sports are in full force.
Yes.
Right? And Fox has more sports than ever.
You are not kidding. I mean, for crying out loud, spring scene alone, you see all the marketing for IndyCar Fox is doing these days. That launches, by the way, this weekend, and that is high priority on that list. I mean, the competition's higher than ever, even for the networks to try and get eyeballs on their own stuff. It's only going to get more nuts, and it's only going to get crazier as when you see, we're talking more places are going to get streaming or sports streaming that are going to look for rights, and you're going to be dividing up eyeballs and such. But, the issue, it's funny because the TV, it seems like they kind of just feel like they're fine on, but it almost feels like all the crises type of like panic button-y stuff is all of the stuff about trying to make the market activated, to put it into marketing terms, to activate your city, your community, and I think they are doing some things. But, it's funny, like a lot of people complain about Birmingham, and I'm like, well, when's the last time you saw anything that they were in the city lately?
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, like that's on the business. Like, yes, they are tackling markets they were disappointed in last year, specifically Memphis. They've been hounding the Memphis market this year with a lot of stuff, and that's great. That's great. Mm-hmm. But where's the other stuff? I do ask, like, if we're going to tackle one, like, I'll be honest with you, I said this best. There's 5 of the 8 markets to me that we should be like really concentrating a lot of effort on selling tickets on. I could argue 6, but the only reason I don't, and I say this again, is because Arlington, Texas is the home of the UFL headquarters. They're not going anywhere, because why would they leave when they have a sweetheart deal in a stadium right there? You got 5 markets that by, metrics of some fandoms that I've discussed with, for some feel it's 12K. Well, last year, only 2 teams reached 12K average attendance at home. So I feel like you should be doing a lot. And I've seen a lot of San Antonio marketing. I've seen a lot of Michigan marketing lately with Pablo. And I've seen a lot of stuff with Skipper and stuff with Memphis, which is good. But I feel like we're still leaving some ones out there. Like, again, if we're complaining about Birmingham, Houston as well, I feel like you're talking as well. And I think they're just leaning on, well, TDECU will fix the issue.
Well, nobody knows that. Nobody even knows.
I know. But that's the thing. If we're talking about it, whose problem is this? Is this really a fan problem? Because, again, it seems like the business is choosing and picking what it wants, when in reality, you got to if you want 5 markets to be activated, doesn't seem like they really see Birmingham's an issue because they aren't focusing on that being a problem right now. Doesn't seem like Houston's an issue, even though they were a 1-9 squad last year. Ref be damned on his record, because they aren't seeming like that's a problem right now. So
we're going to have a new greatest game they've ever seen before with the Houston Roughnecks. I'm telling you, it's going to be 12-0, 12 people in the crowd, 12 wins. It's going to be amazing.
Long story.
I kid.
Expect your business to do better. Then the fans come. It's up to them to get people, not the fans. It's up to them. Remember this. It's my last message I'm going to say about this through the year, because I'm at this point moving forward, it's about enjoying football season to me. Anything else comes and goes. And as I always say to people, and you and I have talked about this so much, spring football, expect anything to happen. I enjoy the ride every year, and I don't expect tomorrow unless I'm hear about tomorrow. So always enjoy it and support where you can. But remember, it's up to them to sell you on the ticket. It's not up to you. Do not make this a fan issue. Make this a business issue.
Well, and even to that point with the season tickets, and I talked about this on ATU, you kind of alluded to this. Yeah, I understand why you have no choice but to make the tickets cheaper as the season goes on. But you're screwing the season ticket holder, and so you can't be shocked that season tickets are down 60%.
Well,
right?
when I hear
you need to have an incentive.
When I hear that the Thoroughbreds group is having season ticket holders from that group, some of them are saying I'm out, and that's a booster club, by the way. That's not something I want to hear about. Like, that to me means that you're missing, that something is clearly being missed in the message or how you're approaching and looking to value the season ticket holder. Again, just the more I've been talking with folks that have been through the ringer in sports business, season ticket holders are your gold standard. They are the people you treat the best possible. And I'm not saying single tickets aren't like that. You still do a good job. Yeah. But in the realm of ticketing and marketing, they're the ones you appease the most. You answer and cater to their call as much as often. The only one that's above it is suite buyers or people that are company buy sweet tickets. Otherwise, your season ticket holders, you treat them like freaking gods because they're the ones that bought the whole season for you. And when you don't do that and you cheat them out of money, supposedly at times, or they feel cheated by deals, can you blame them?
Well, here's the thing. And I'll tell you, so they sent out a survey to all the season ticket holders across the league. Right. And it may have actually been to more than season ticket holders. It may have been to just anybody on their email list, but I know I got one. I filled it out. I usually don't fill these things out because I feel like these guys know my stupid opinion. We're up here yapping and this and that. But you know what? This time around, I'm like, I don't know if these guys know anything about spring football, so they probably don't even know that anybody's talking about spring football. So I'm going to fill this damn thing out. And what I put in there is mainly what we said is look, I get that you have to run deals because you don't want an empty stadium. Because of that, you need to give an incentive for the season ticket holders. And it doesn't, that the crazy thing is, Zach, it doesn't need to be anything insane. If they literally just made commemorative physical tickets with a nice printed out schedule that they sent to all the season ticket holders, dude, I'm telling you, that's enough for half of them. Half of them would be like, sweet, look at this cool thing that I can frame. You can't even get physical tickets to most games anyway. You kind of have a thing that 3 weeks from now, they're not going to run a deal and say, hey, we're going to give you 2 tickets for the price of 1 and give you a sweater. And then here's the other thing they could do. Any of those promotions, you should get the promotion if you're a season ticket holder.
Yeah.
If they have a promotion where you buy 1 ticket, get 1 free, and you get a free sweater, if you're a season ticket holder, you should get that sweater when you walk in the building too.
Season ticket holders should be getting the first choice or first run of certain things. And I think that's the disconnect I'm learning more and more is it's the league is very focused on getting these in, but what they're forgetting is that core principle, with any sports property and ticketing, is your season ticket holder guys should always get the best available options. And I really feel that disconnect showed off last year. And the more I've talked, especially the folks I know in Birmingham, it really feels like they dropped the ball there last season. And I feel like that's definitely a big part of why we have this discussion with why aren't the tickets going more? It's well, fix the problems you're making. That is on you. It's not on them. you're causing that stuff. So, and I think that's why we saw certain moves is like, they're realizing, oh crap, we need to like find some new or fresh ideas or new people that have a take on this, because apparently what we are doing is not working, and it's showing itself. So that's all I got on it. I can keep going all day, but they clearly know the issue because we've seen the moves on this issue, and it's up to them to fix it. It's a little late in the game for what they've been making changes, but what are you going to do? You got a season to operate and you want to start getting butts in seats. And I think people just want to find a fix as soon as possible. So
now here's the good news. If you're a fan of the league, the games are still going to be fun, right? They might be a little bit more expensive, but they're still affordable. Especially, honestly, if you wait till game day, you're probably going to be getting in pretty affordable, right? Mm-hmm. And you can kind of sit wherever you want. So don't be a doomer about anything, but don't be a doomer about spring football. So Zach and I, we're professionals. We're professional critique artists. So we can do this without damaging our brains. And, I think I talked about this the other day, Zach. Being a doomer is like a cancer for your mind. If you are like negative about it, I know doomers in real life. I work with doomers. I know doomers and like friends that are doomers, people that are, there's negative about everything. There's always a complaint that you're going to damage your brain thinking that way. So don't do it. And just don't do it with spring football. As you mentioned, Zach, and not even with spring football, we saw this in 2020. Anything could happen with anything. We saw all short sports shut down, which I never thought I would have saw the day that March Madness was canceled, but it happened. I don't think that we're going to see that with the UFL. I think we're going to see the UFL finish out the season. But I always just enjoy, look, we're like veterans in this. We've been through the AAF. We've been through the XFL. Yeah. We've been through, even the MLFB, baby.
Oh, my
goodness. So, you kind of take every game for what it is. But I don't have any worries that the league's not going to make it throughout the season, anything like that. But enjoy it. If you're a fan of the league, you support it in any way that you can. And if you can't, you can't. Watch it on TV, right? But enjoy the games. The games are still going to be good. For as all the griping is online about tickets, it kind of takes me back to the argument of the hubs. People wanted fans and stands. Yes, sure. Did it impact the games? Not really. Yeah. The games were still fun. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to a 12-0 season for my Roughnecks. I'm looking forward to hoisting the trophy along with them through hook or crook. We'll make it happen. So anyway, we do like to be realists about things. And, we could shill all day and night, but at least, we have real opinions about stuff. On that note, for more coverage like this, make sure you check it out, profootballnewsroom.com daily. Make sure you subscribe, click the bell. It builds morale. It also lets you know when we go live, just like every Monday with Around the UFL, just like we're going to be doing with Spring Stock 4, March 28th, live in Houston, home of the Swangers. And we're going to be there to witness destiny when the Roughnecks start their 12-0 season. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, wow.
Follow us at UFL Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. TikTok's unbanned. It's there. We got it.
It's around.
So, check it out. We're there. PF Newsroom, the drill. You can, any other final words before we head off into the sunset?
Yeah, just look, season, I think, for us in terms of like tangible on the ground stuff is finally here. Just excitement's starting to build. Get into it. It's that time again. Friday night football for the UFL is coming up soon enough, and it's much sooner than you think. So, yeah, it's still exciting. Like, yeah, we had just had the discussion, but like, look, still a fun time. Go and have fun with it as well. And again, let the business fix their own stuff. You be a fan first and enjoy in the way you want to enjoy, and let them do what they need to do to get you to continue enjoying the product they want you to see.
Hell yeah! And on that note, sign you up.